Around 2011-2012, Turkey was probably one of the most favoured emerging markets.
Are you ready to uncover the shocking truth behind Turkey's escalating economic crisis? Join us as we peel back the layers of financial turmoil and reveal the harsh realities facing one of the world's most influential economies. Stay tuned as we dive deep into the heart of the crisis and explore the factors driving Turkey's economic woes. The saga of Turkey's economic crisis is a tale of ambition, ideology, and unforeseen consequences. It begins with the rise of President Erdogan, a charismatic leader who promised prosperity and stability to a nation hungry for change. Erdogan's vision was bold: to transform Turkey into a regional powerhouse, both economically and politically. However, his methods would soon plunge the country into a downward spiral of financial turmoil. At the heart of Erdogan's economic strategy was a fervent belief in Islamic principles and a distrust of orthodox economic theory. He saw interest rate hikes as contrary to Islamic teachings, viewing them as a tool of oppression wielded by the so-called interest rate lobby. In Erdogan's eyes, cutting interest rates was not just an economic decision, but a moral imperative, a stance that would ultimately prove disastrous for Turkey's economy. Erdogan's unconventional approach to monetary policy sent shockwaves through the international financial community. While central banks around the world were raising interest rates to combat inflation, Erdogan doubled down on his strategy of rate cuts, defying conventional wisdom at every turn. The result was a sharp decline in the value of the Turkish lira and a surge in inflation, as the country's economy spiraled out of control. But Erdogan was undeterred by the mounting evidence of his policy's failure. He doubled down on his efforts to control the narrative, dismissing warnings from economists and international institutions as conspiracies against Turkey. Meanwhile, he purged dissenting voices from the central bank, replacing them with loyalists who were willing to toe the party line at any cost. As the crisis deepened, Erdogan's grip on power tightened. He consolidated control over key institutions, silencing dissent and cracking down on opposition voices. But even as he tightened his grip, the economic fundamentals continued to deteriorate, with inflation soaring to unprecedented levels and the lira plummeting to new lows. The consequences of Erdogan's economic mismanagement were felt acutely by ordinary Turks, whose purchasing power eroded as prices soared and wages stagnated. The middle class bore the brunt of the crisis, as businesses shuttered, jobs vanished, and savings evaporated overnight. Meanwhile, Erdogan's inner circle grew richer, insulated from the hardships faced by the masses. But the true cost of Erdogan's gamble would only become clear in the years to come. As Turkey's economy teetered on the brink of collapse, its status as a regional power broker was called into question. The once promising vision of prosperity and stability had given way to a grim reality of debt, inflation, and uncertainty. As Turkey's economic crisis deepened, President Erdogan faced mounting pressure to change course. In a surprising move, he appointed orthodox economic figures to key positions, hoping to bring stability to the country's faltering economy. These new appointments included a finance minister and a central bank governor, both of whom were known for their adherence to traditional economic principles. Their task was daunting: to reverse the damage caused by Erdogan's unorthodox policies and steer Turkey back on track towards economic stability. The finance minister and central bank governor wasted no time in implementing their agenda. They swiftly raised interest rates in an effort to curb inflation and stabilize the Turkish lira. Their actions were met with cautious optimism from both domestic and international observers, who hoped that these changes would mark a turning point in Turkey's economic fortunes. However, the road to recovery would prove to be long and arduous. Despite the drastic measures taken by the new economic team, inflation remained stubbornly high, and the lira continued to plummet against foreign currencies. The challenges facing Turkey's economy were daunting, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. As the months passed, it became increasingly clear that there were no easy solutions to Turkey's economic woes. The finance minister and central bank governor faced fierce resistance from within Erdogan's inner circle, where loyalty to the president often trumped sound economic policy. Yet, despite the obstacles in their path, the orthodox economic figures pressed on, determined to do whatever it took to salvage Turkey's economy. They knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they refused to back down in the face of adversity. For many Turks, the appointment of orthodox economic figures offered a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak landscape. They hoped that these new leaders would bring much needed stability and prosperity to their country, and they were willing to support them in their efforts. But the fate of Turkey's economy ultimately rested in the hands of President Erdogan. His willingness to embrace orthodox economic principles would be crucial in determining the country's future trajectory. As the world watched and waited, Erdogan faced a critical decision. Would he continue down the path of economic recklessness, or would he heed the advice of his economic advisors and chart a new course for Turkey? The answer to that question would shape the destiny of millions of Turks for years to come. The impact of Turkey's economic crisis on the Turkish lira and inflation has been profound, affecting the lives of millions of people across the country. As the crisis deepened, the Turkish lira experienced a rapid decline in value against major foreign currencies, particularly the US dollar. This depreciation of the lira has had far-reaching consequences for the Turkish economy, exacerbating inflationary pressures and eroding the purchasing power of ordinary citizens. The depreciation of the lira has been particularly troubling for businesses and consumers alike. Imported goods have become more expensive, leading to higher prices for essential goods and services. This has placed a heavy burden on Turkish households, many of whom have seen their savings dwindle as inflation erodes their purchasing power. Inflation, which measures the rate at which prices for goods and services rise over time, has soared to unprecedented levels in Turkey. The sharp depreciation of the lira has fueled inflationary pressures, pushing prices higher across the board. Basic necessities such as food, fuel and housing have become increasingly unaffordable for many Turks, further exacerbating the hardship caused by the economic crisis. The Turkish government has attempted to combat inflation through various measures, including raising interest rates and implementing price controls. However, these efforts have had limited success in stemming the tide of rising prices. Inflation remains stubbornly high, posing a significant challenge to the country's economic stability. The impact of inflation extends beyond the realm of economics, affecting every aspect of daily life for ordinary Turks. Many families struggle to make ends meet as their wages fail to keep pace with the rising cost of living. Small businesses face mounting pressures as they grapple with higher operating costs and dwindling consumer demand. The consequences of Turkey's economic crisis are felt acutely by all segments of society, from the wealthiest elites to the most vulnerable members of society. As inflation continues to soar and the lira depreciates further, the outlook for Turkey's economy remains uncertain. Without decisive action to address the root causes of the crisis, the country risks sliding further into economic turmoil. As Turkey faces critical challenges on both economic and political fronts, the road ahead remains uncertain. Stay tuned for more updates on this unfolding story as we continue to explore the complexities of Turkey's economic crisis and its broader implications. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay informed with our latest content.